Hey everyone, welcome to our next edition of TUPE Talk. This is episode 4, How to Build Culture and Capacity in a Team of Peer Educators. And as you might have guessed, it would be pretty idiotic of me to have that kind of a conversation just by myself. So I brought with me 3 of my outstanding peer educator team members. Going from right to left, we have Bridget and Dylan and Molly. And they're going to be doing most of the talking throughout this episode. I might jump in here and there with some questions or asking them to talk more, but I think they have a lot to share with you all for how we go about building our team. So, you guys started off wherever you want to. What is it that you think makes our team click, builds the potential and makes it actual to the point where other people are asking us how we do it?
I think definitely just we look for a very diverse skill set in the people that we recruit. We're not looking for one specific person. There's people that have vaped in the past. There's people who still are dealing with addictions, and there's people that are really good at different things. So we kind of looked for people that can contribute in all different ways to kind of expand our program. Recently, we've built a few committees. So we have the social media team. We have the cannabis committee, people that are doing a lot of research on that. And I think that kind of made our team stronger because we have so many different groups of people within it.
Being on about that, any of you feel free to talk about this. One of the things that Dylan mentioned, and we can definitely get more into committees later if we have the time, is this idea that we're looking for a diversity in terms of life experiences and experiences with regards to vaping. And I know you all know one of the questions we ask is, what kind of personal history do you have with that? What's your relationship been with nicotine? And why do you think our approach to that, which encourages, full disclosure and honesty without any judgment, why do you think that makes a difference?
I think that's one of the biggest things about TUPE, I think, is the diversity and experience, because if everyone here just hasn't vaped, has no experience with it, then how are we supposed to educate these kids who are going through that experience? And I also have found that a lot of times the people who have experience with it, they have more credibility sometimes with the kids, and even if you do a lot of research, they can still pull the card you haven't been where I've been, you haven't done what I have, and it's really good to be able to relate to the kids. But then on the other hand, it is important to have the people who decided to not take that path, because then it gives the kids the options to be we could choose what they want to do and also just get support from different avenues, which I think is really important.
Go ahead, Mom.
Yeah, well, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think a huge piece as well is, if you were to research about the color red, you don't want to talk to people whose favorite color is blue all the time. You want to get an array of people who not only can, like Bridget said, contribute to a lot of what we do in here, but also we learn from one another. I think a huge piece as well is that we want to educate the people who we are presenting to, but through this process and how we become, I like to say, an elite team of people is through learning through each other and what each other has gone through, and then how we can kind of respond and grow as students as well.
That's fascinating. Well, I think you brought up a really interesting point about learning from each other that I want to hear more from you guys about in just a minute. But I think to encapsulate what you guys are saying, to further the metaphor of people whose favorite color is one versus the other, when I heard what you and Bridget were saying, and what Dylan was saying too, is about, we present to diverse audiences. Yes, it's freshmen, maybe it's 8th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders, but we have people with different levels of experience and familiarity and feelings about nicotine, vaping, whatever. And so having a group of 3 presenters, one of whom has maybe said, you know what, I'm an athlete and I decided from the beginning that isn't for me. Another person who said, yeah, I tried it, I did it a few times, but I knew my dad was a smoker for a long time, and so I didn't want to go down that road. And another person says, yeah, I had a real hard time stopping, right? And I've actually relapsed, and TUPE has helped me to stay on that path that I'm trying to get on. Having all of those perspectives together is even more valuable. So, what kinds of experiences have you guys had in terms of how the team members kind of play off each other. Because Molly, you said learning from each other, but I think in the broader sense, how do members of the team affect other members of the team?
I think a huge piece for us is kind of the overall goal. I think a huge piece are expectations as well, and how the two play on each other is we applied to get into this class, and it is something that we don't want to say is incredibly difficult to get into, and only a select few will get in, but it is something that we work towards because we are passionate about what we're speaking about. So with that being said, we hold each other accountable because we have high expectations for each other, because we want each other to grow, we want to learn, and we want to make sure that if our end goal is to something as simple as completing a presentation to some ninth graders at some point, then we want to make sure everyone is ready for that and ready to put in the work. So I think how we play off of each other is based on that. We know why we're here, and we know what we want as individuals, and we know what we want as a collective group.
Thank you. You guys have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just adding on to Molly, I think also since we've all applied to be here, we all are sort of in a non-judgmental frame of mind when it comes to experience-wise, less or more, that kind of thing. And I think that really allows us to be able to have like open communications and open dialogues about experiences and stuff, because it does help to know what someone else has gone through, because then when it comes to talking to the kids, then you can try and relate to them in ways that maybe you can't, because maybe you don't directly relate to them, but you know people who have, and you've had conversations with people who have, and I think that really helps just connect with like a very wide array of audience members.
I'm hearing words that you guys are using, and it reminds me of something that I was very conscious about when I started setting up this team. You used words like open-minded, and you talked about growth and learning, and recognizing that just because we accept someone into our team who applied doesn't mean we expect them to hit the ground running day one and suddenly know everything they have to do to be an effective peer educator, right? We give permission to grow and learn, especially because we're talking about things that are where the whole world is learning about them as they go, especially when it comes to things like vaping, which is relatively new, and the changing face of cannabis and things like that. So giving each other permission to grow and permission to learn, and being open-minded to other perspectives and other people's stories is something that is a really, really important part of our team. Maybe you guys can talk a little bit about how it feels to be a part of the TUPE team, and maybe even comparing it to other teams you've been a part of, either because they both worked or maybe one has worked better than the other.
I think bringing it kind of back to the whole having like a diverse group of people here, I think it really has helped us bond in a way that we wouldn't really if we were just in a class together or we're part of another club together. And it also helps a lot with presentations, because I feel like because we do know each other very well, and we have TUPE bondings and whatnot, it makes the presentations go a lot smoother, and we kind of build off of each other throughout the presentations, and we're more comfortable with each other, which also helps us be more comfortable with our audience.
Can you guys share a little bit more of the background? You talked about the bonding. Would you
Yeah.
share a little bit more about how that came about and what we did?
Yeah, I mean, for the first few weeks of TUPE, a lot of it is mainly like icebreakers and just bonding stuff. And I think we went to Blackie's pasture and like just this green field, and we all just hung out there and just talked. And we did a bunch of we actually did a bunch of icebreaker games, which ended up being kind of fun, and just kind of got into that. And I think that's always important to start with, because a lot of times it can be like awkward maybe to do that kind of stuff, but when you have a group of people that some of you don't know each other, or different grades or different whatever, I think it's very like meaningful to get those kind of interactions out of the way.
Yeah, you guys brought spike ball and you guys brought food.
Yeah.
And I say you guys because they invited me, which was really nice, but I made a conscious decision to not go, because I felt like the dynamic of teacher there, regardless of how close we feel, I felt like that was going to change the social equation in a way that I didn't want it to. I didn't want anyone worried about what they were going to say because I was there. And I just wanted you guys to have the chance to have this organic bonding experience. And we had some members that talked about that as something they wanted to accomplish this year. And maybe you guys can talk about some of the goals that you've developed as examples for some of the areas that we choose to grow in. I know, for example, like Riley and Nick had talked at the end of last year when we did our exit meetings at the end of your junior year about what were the areas for growth. They wanted to focus on team bonding as one of the things to grow at. And so that's why they planned that Blackie's Pasture excursion. And it's, I think, an example of how we're continuing to grow. This is, I think, our 5th year. It was the first year we'd done something like that. So we didn't have it all figured out right away. But what are some of the areas that you see us, either you growing as individuals or us growing as a team?
I think I haven't been a part of any of these because of COVID, but I know we have a few presentations coming up that are like directed towards kids, like no middle school, no high school presentations. I feel like that would definitely be something that we can improve on, because I feel like all of our training is based on presenting towards these younger kids, but being able to present our information into like a variety of audiences is definitely something we can build on, and I feel like it would be more effective if we could, reach out to as many people as possible, because it's not also just younger teenagers that are struggling with nicotine addictions.
Parents, staff.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about in our next meeting is, do we want to do a staff presentation?
I think we definitely should.
Yeah.
Cool. What else? Goals, growth, what do you think?
Well, I'd love to build off of that, because I agree. I feel like a huge community that sometimes we don't always include in, and when I say include, I just mean like the presentations, or maybe just speaking to them, but it could be the parents or the adults in the equation. Because if we're targeting, or if maybe in this particular presentation we're speaking to high schoolers or middle schoolers, I think that also the demographic that could influence that teen usage are the adults, because they play a huge part in our lives as they're our teachers, and they teach us all this information, and sometimes you can only do so much within that class, and that's obviously another talk in itself as to what kids are being taught in school besides us and programs like TUPE. But I hope that in the future, not only can we collaborate with parents more to see if we can have things like the buyback committee that might ultimately be pitched to parents at some point.
I never would have even thought of that.
Right, so I think with parents in particular, and adults and teachers and all the people that also are a part of our lives, if they're a little bit more involved with what we're doing, or maybe we help them understand what we're doing more, then that could open our eyes and their eyes to kind of a whole new perspective.
I mean, Molly didn't even realize it, but she brought up a really important case in point about our team, which is that she's talking about things, and Dylan was a second ago, I didn't think of. I've never thought of doing stuff like that. And so the empowerment that you guys feel, and I'd love to know if you feel like there's anything that I, as a coordinator, not that I'm looking for any kind of ego stroke, but like, I feel like giving you guys space to share your ideas, and not me just coming across like, here's what we're doing, you do this, you do this, you do this. We have this culture of you being able to give feedback and guide what we're doing in ways that make our program stronger, and in ways that I could never do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I definitely believe that you've sort of created an environment where all of our opinions feel really valuable and really valid. And I think that just really makes us all want to work more for it and really figure out the idea, because you've given us this freedom to do what we want to do, but that also comes with the responsibility to really work and put time into it. And I think it is really cool, because we do come up with really interesting stuff that I think as teenagers going through it, we can. But I think when you create an environment where it's like your ideas are valid, 'cause a lot of times some people, there's like ageism and looking down on that kind of stuff. But this is definitely a place where we have a very, very valid perspective and opinion right now.
So would you say it's a balance of empowerment with accountability?
Mm-hmm.
and feedback, in the sense that, you know, you did the cannabis presentation, we're like, all right, we're going to present it on this day, and then I'm giving you guys stuff along the way to help you with the buyback, like, all right, Riley and Molly, we need it by this day, but, you know, that's just a rough draft, here's some feedback, we'll keep going. Stuff like that.
Yeah, that helps with deadlines and stuff.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Things that you want other people to know about our team and how we do things that you think might help them?
Sorry, no, please go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly say that I think it's very important to make sure that it's a community of just being really open with each other, and I know that's sometimes hard to create, but doing the trust exercises and also really getting people to share their ideas, I think, is really important, because then you build a sort of trust with each other about that. I think that's a lot of what TUPE is.
Dylan, you got something?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of build off what Bridget said earlier. I think that, you know, as our advisor, you have done a really good job of kind of, you know, creating this inclusive and encouraging environment. And I feel like for other programs, it's really, really important because it brings out the best in us. And, you know, we come to this class at the end of the day like looking forward to it, and really wanting to like encourage, you know, each other to just do whatever we're focusing on during that class period. So I think that's a really, really important element of our program.
Awesome. Thank you. Molly, any final thoughts?
Just quickly, I think a big thing that people misunderstand about this class is that you have to get a little uncomfortable to get to the comfortable. So vulnerability is a huge one for us. It doesn't come naturally at first for everybody. So it's just doing the bonding, seeing each other, understanding why we're here is going to allow people to be vulnerable and, you know, grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. That was outstanding.
Thank you.
Really appreciate all your help. That's going to look really good.
All right.
We did that in one take.